My name is Michael Plumley with Clemson University, and today I'll have the opportunity to talk a little bit about Soybean Water Use 101. So most soybean farmers would agree that this is not what they want their soybeans to look like early in pod fill or first flower. Short, stunted, and stressed plants at bloom or pod fill due to drought. So understanding water use in soybean is beneficial for growers by helping make management decisions and assisting with irrigation scheduling so that yield can be maximized on every acre that they have on their farm. Supplemental irrigation is one tool that can be used to help meet water demand in soybean in times of erratic rainfall patterns or drought that we often see during the growing season, especially in the South. By truly understanding soybean water use, it'll help ensure that profits are maximized on every acre as well. So in order to apply a good irrigation regime in soybean, a few questions must first be answered, such as how much water does a soybean need on a daily basis, or how much water do we need throughout the entire growing season? In addition to understanding the quantity of water that we need for a soybean to maximize its production, we also need to know when does the water or rainfall need to be applied, or when should we be receiving rainfall to maximize our production? Does the timing of irrigation or rainfall change throughout the growing season as well? So by ultimately knowing how much water needs to be applied and when to apply it to soybean, we can help maximize our yield while maximizing our water savings and therefore hopefully maximizing our profits. So how good can we do by applying the water when we need it to save as much water while making as much money as we possibly can? So crop water use curves can help illustrate crop water demand throughout the growing season. Here we have a water use curve for soybean. Most all row crops follow a very similar curve where we start out very low with water use in the beginning of the growing season, we peak at reproductive growth, and then we taper off at the end of the season. In this particular curve, you will see that evapotranspiration, or the amount of water used by the plant per day, is on the y-axis, and the soybean growth stage is along the x. A few things that I wanted to point out while looking at the soybean water use curve are that as soybean begins to emerge soon after planting, water use demand is very low, often needing less than an inch of water per week. In many places in the soybean growing regions across the United States, especially in the South, we often get enough rainfall to meet this demand early on. As soybean continues to grow throughout the season and approaches reproductive growth, water use really starts to ramp up and increases to a peak of 0.3 inches of water per day, or around 2 inches of water per week. It is from first flower through full seed growth stages, so R1 to R6, that the majority of the seasonal water use occurs in soybeans. So as you can imagine, it is also during this time that if we have a water deficit, we could have the largest yield impact in terms of, hurting yield if we were withholding water during that time. So now that we know a little bit more on what soybean water use looks like throughout the growing season, a few key takeaways from this presentation that I want to make are: first, soybean water use is not static across the growing season. Therefore, if supplemental irrigation is available, application rates and timing should vary depending on soybean growth stage. Secondly, soybean water use is maximized at full bloom to early pod set growth stages. So if water is withheld during this period, reductions in yield are very likely. Additionally, if irrigation is available, ensuring that adequate moisture is present to the plants during this time is critical. And then lastly, or the third point that I wanted to make today, is that by having some knowledge of the water use demand curve in soybean, coupled with an irrigation schedule or scheduling tool such as a soil moisture sensor, can help an irrigator make better irrigation decisions and maximize yield, again, while maximizing their water use efficiency.